What's with your attitude? No, I'm serious. What's with your attitude? What I mean is every one of us has an attitude, right? And all the spouses said, "Oh, yeah, I know. You don't have to tell me that." But do you know what the strengths and the qualities of your attitude are? Do you know what the weaknesses and the problems of your attitude are? Maybe let's do this. Let's start with an agreed upon, maybe working definition of what an attitude is. An attitude is, for lack of a better way of describing it, just a settled way of thinking about things and people. Just sort of your default way of thinking about your posture towards things and people. But really not just the way you think about it, but the kind of thinking that actually leads you to live a particular way. It motivates actions. It's when we have an attitude, it's produced in how we live. So think about this. When you're talking about somebody's attitude, you know it almost exclusively from their behavior. When you say, man, they had a great attitude, or wow, you have a terrible attitude, you're really addressing things you've seen them do. It's not as if they stopped and said, hey, I just want to share my settled thoughts on this. Here's how I perceive this. Here's how I perceive this moment. Here's how I perceive you. And that's sort of what's motivating my behavior. We know people's attitude by how they act. Right? Somebody does something, somebody acts a particular way, and we kind of think, man, what's with the attitude? Or if our kids are doing it, we say, hey, you better get a new attitude, right? You better change that attitude. So with that in mind, can we sort of agree that in order for us to live the right way, we need to have the right attitude, because attitude motivates behavior. Attitude exposes what we think about the things that we're experiencing, the people that are in our lives, because it's expressed through our behavior. So in order to get the right life, we have to get the right attitude. And when I use the word right, I'm not talking about this pie in the sky, head in the sand, Pollyanna, everything's going to be okay, everything's good, and I've always got to be positive, and I've always got to be happy, and that's not necessarily what I'm saying. Right is having the right thoughts that lead to the right words, that lead to the right behaviors, because we want a right life. We want to do life right, right? So Paul, he addresses this city called Philippi. And I think the Fishers, are you in here? Because you went to Philippi, didn't you? Weren't you guys in Greece? They went to Philippi. Okay, so it's a real place. By the way, the Bible has real places and real people in it, right? So Paul is addressing the church in the city of Philippi. And he is addressing them as if they're kind of children who are in, you know, like how you'll go up to your kids' room. There's something going on up there. First it was quiet, and now it's pandemonium. And you go up and you ask what's going on. You see this conflict happening, and everybody starts sharing their thing. And it's this attitude of, I should get this. They did this to me. And Paul is addressing them in this similar way, where he's addressing this attitude that I'm more right than they are. I should get my way on this. They should see things from my perspective. And Paul addresses it very specifically with this. Listen to Philippians 2:2-8. Now, here's what's going to make me happy, guys. Live in harmony, live in unity by showing love for each other. Now, listen to how he says love is accomplished. Be united in what you think as if you were only one person, because we are always in agreement with ourselves. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that convenient how much we agree with us? As if you were only one person. Don't be jealous. They got something I didn't get. Don't be proud. I deserve this. Be humble and consider others more important than yourselves. Not that they are, but that you take the posture that they are. That helps thwart off the growing pride within us. Care about them as much as you care about yourselves, and think the same way that Jesus thought. Here's what Jesus thought. Christ was truly God, but he did not try to remain equal with God. Instead, he gave up everything and became a slave. And when he became like one of us, Christ was humble. He obeyed God and even died on a cross. So in all the conflict and all this battling and all of Paul's efforts to get us to love each other, here's what Paul says. Think like each other. Come into unity in what you think. Not in agreement on topics, issues, things like that, but come into agreement on how we see ourselves and how we see each other. That way, no matter what conflict arises, we've already got the right attitude towards it. He says, here's the right attitude, that you consider others more important than yourselves. Not that they are, but that you would consider them that, and here's what that results in, that you would want for them what you want for yourself. You would care about their needs as much as you care for yourself. And he says, I want to give you an example. You need to think like Jesus. If you don't know what that looks like, think like Jesus. Here's what Jesus thought. Jesus was equal with God, but chose to not act equal with God. He chose to act equal with us. He chose to act like us and see the world through our eyes. Jesus had every right to just simply be God, and yet he cloaked himself with humanity. Wow, that is huge for us. Nearly impossible it would seem, right? So if you are not living right now as Jesus lived, it's likely because you don't have the attitude that Jesus had. And if you don't have the attitude Jesus has, then it's time for an attitude adjustment, right? Don't you find that adjusting your own attitude is easier than having someone over you adjust it? Right? I never liked when I kind of was confronted by my parents and then forced to, you better change it, because there was no motivation to change it at that point. I felt like I needed to dig my heels in. But when we recognize within ourselves the need to do better in how we think, which is what our settled thinking is our attitude, then we change how we live. When we see the need to do that, change comes easier. Because we're a willing participant. It's our idea, and we are the one moving it. So we're going to talk about that attitude adjustment quickly with three things. I want to fill up on the right attitude. So number one, I start seeing serving as my pattern and privilege. I start seeing serving as my pattern and privilege. So Jesus is eating with his disciples, disciples is just students. It's like a committed They devoted their life to sitting under the teaching and the example of, and that was not uncommon then. Philosophers had disciples and students, and Jesus was a rabbi. He was considered a teacher. He was of the age to be a rabbi, which is 30, and he was well versed in Mosaic law and Davidic law, and he knew the scriptures, right? So he had these people that followed him, and he was eating with his disciples. And he does something that's completely and totally unexpected, and it creates this really awkward moment because it's so outside of his role. Okay? So what happens is it creates this moment that even 2,000 years later, we're still learning from. In the middle of eating, they're eating a dinner together. Jesus gets up, he takes off his robe, his outer garment, and he grabs a long piece of cloth that was probably a towel of some sort, and he ties it around his waist, and he sits down with a bowl of water, and he begins to wash the feet of his disciples. This in no context is this Jesus' job to do. So there's two people who would have done that. One is a slave, an indentured servant, whose family owed something or whatever the reason. It's not like Western slavery. They were indentured to perform tasks until debt was paid off or their prior family's debt was paid off, whatever. Or a servant who was actually paid Their meals were provided, housing was provided, they were a live-in servant. They would have done that. Or third, in rarer circumstances, a wife. Usually this would be wealthier families. A wife would take on the posture of washing her feet, not as servitude to her husband, but as an act of intimacy to show devotion and honor and love. It was a very intimate act. So really those circumstances right there, a slave, a servant, or a spouse would do that. Jesus would never, in his context, any context whatsoever, wash the feet of his disciples. So it creates this really weird, I don't know, it would be like, it would be like watching somebody, the president of a corporation just start showing up at his company's unclogging toilets, and it was like, everybody would be like, this is a setup. There's something weird happening. I'm confused by all of this. Peter actually pushes back on Jesus and goes, no, you're never going to wash my feet. And Jesus says, unless I wash your feet, you don't belong to me. And then Peter goes, oh, okay, wash my feet, wash my head, wash my whole, everything. And Jesus then moves in to this. Listen, in John 13, 12 through 17, it says, after he had finished washing their feet, he took his robe and put it back on, and he went back to his place at the table. And Jesus sits back down, starts eating again. And then he says, do you understand what I've done to you? You address me as teacher and master, and rightfully so. That's what I am. That's my role to you. So if I, the master and the teacher, washed your feet, you must now wash each other's feet. I've laid down a what? Pattern, an attitude for you. What I've done, you do. I'm only pointing out the obvious. A servant is not ranked above his master. You don't do, you're not above me, I'm above you in our roles. An employee doesn't give orders to the employer. If you understand what I'm telling you, then act like it and live a blessed life. Jesus said, if I just did for you what I'm not even supposed to do for you, because in our roles, in our societal and our cultural roles, I'm above you, but I washed your feet. I put myself below you. Where do you get off not serving each other? Or those you think are below you, that society tells you are below you, that culture tells you are below you, that politics say are below you. You should be doing this for one another. And I love this because he says, I've set a pattern for you, an attitude for you. Jesus says, I want you to confront your attitude. I want you to ask yourself, do I think I'm too good for this? Do I think I'm too important to do this role? Do I think I'm too moral or too right? Do I think I'm better than somebody else? Do I think they're below me? And if they are, those are the people you should first serve. There was about 20-ish years ago, and for those who have been in church for a long time, you probably remember this. There was this weird trend in churches of doing foot washings. Does anybody remember that? Lisa's laughing because she remembers that. And it was foot washing everywhere. Everybody's feet were uncovered. Everybody was washing feet everywhere. They were doing it in small groups. Pastors would, in the middle of service, have their staff come up and they would wash their staff's. He would wash the staff's feet in front of the whole church to show he was submitting himself and serving and doing this. And they would take busloads of people down and they would wash the feet of the homeless in the inner city. And it was all a little weird and contrived to me. And I'm going to tell you why. I think in church sometimes we do things with the right motive, but it doesn't get executed very well. Here's what I think the problem is. First, it's sort of scheduled this single moment of an attitude we're supposed. It sort of goes, we're planning this thing and we're going to do this demonstration. It's kind of going to be a public demonstration of something that really should be our default attitude, but it's going to be prescribed and it's going to be completely culturally irrelevant. Because in 2005, whenever that was, people don't need their feet washed. You're walking around with nylon cotton blend socks on and $100 Air Jordans on. We don't live in a world where you're walking on clay and dirt roads in thongs and flip-flop, where your feet are caked in mud, and you go into someone's home, and out of honor for not dirtying their home, you put your feet down and a servant washes your feet. That's what it was. It was just a cultural thing, like you just washed off your feet. That's what it did. But in 2005, we're doing this weirdly disconnected thing. And then here's my second problem. After that just kind of weird moment was over, in which it is very uncomfortable and awkward for everybody, after it's over, it's not like you just went, I get it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing all the time. It doesn't teach anyone what it looks like to really genuinely serve someone. It just gave them this culturally irrelevant moment in which to do it. Do you see what I mean? Like, our intentions were good to teach this humility, and then we taught it in the wrong way. This is what 1 John 3:18 says. My little children, don't just talk about love. I want you to notice how often love is connected to behavior. And behavior that we think, okay, we're talking about humility, right? We're talking about serving people. Love is the motivator. Love is the ultimate expression. My little children, don't just talk about love as an idea or a theory. Make it your true way of life and live in the pattern of gracious love. Do things for each other that demonstrate what love actually looks like. Number 2 is this. I want to fill up on the right attitude so I stop seeing even one person as undeserving of my best. I stop seeing even one person as deserving of my best or undeserving of my best. So I think I'm capable, I hope I am, of giving my best to most people. And I think I'm even capable. I think if I really, really prepare myself, I can give my best to those who are difficult and challenging and unlikable. Right? Because listen, I get it. There are unlikable people who make it really, really hard to like them, much less love them. I got that, right? But I think there's even times that I can really muster up and do it. And do it sincerely. And then there are one or two or a dozen people that I'm like, you're never going to get. I would be grateful to even eke out a mediocre effort to serve you, to do something loving for you. I'm honest enough about myself to know that there are some people that just, it would be impossible for me. But isn't that really the whole point of Jesus telling us to change our attitude? To make our attitude be like his attitude. What good is a Savior that doesn't freely and equally give grace to the worst of us as to the best of us, the most righteous of us? What good is a Savior that can't equally offer full grace to the worst person? That's the point of grace. What good is a healer that doesn't heal the most broken and the sickest of us versus the one with just the sniffles? We need a healer that gives it equally to everyone. And what good is a prophet that can only see the potential and the hope for a future for those who are most lost and most distracted and most broken on their path than the one who's already living a good life on a good path? So that is the point of Jesus' attitude. That's the point of us going through an attitude adjustment. To live as Jesus lived is to think like Jesus thinks. And that means that the absolute worst of people still get the absolute best from us. Paul was addressing the Jewish Christians in Rome, which, remember, Christianity started from Judaism. And so it was a Jewish, very Jewish-toned religion from the beginning. But there were also a lot of Gentiles, non-Jews, who were giving their lives to Christ and becoming followers of Christ. And the Jews, I will tell you, they did not have a kind view of Gentiles. They saw them as dirty. They were impatient with them. They were very arrogant towards them. They were very judgmental towards them and very unkind towards them most of the time. And this was really exemplified through the book of Romans. If you read the book of Romans, it's primarily Paul addressing primarily Jewish Christians who were being very, very judgmental and condemning of the Gentile Christians in the way that they were expressing their faith in Christ, right? They thought of them as ignorant, immoral. They were undisciplined, irreverent. They just thought of them as boorish and not even committed to their faith, because the Jews had this rigidity and this like formality to their faith. And Gentiles were just like very touchy-feely, and they were still troubled with a lot of the sins that they were committing, and they didn't know they weren't supposed to do this and weren't supposed to do that. And so Paul is addressing all of this, and then he tells the Jews, listen, and this is in Romans, if people mistreat you, if they're not acting the way they're supposed to, or they malign you, they attack your character, or they don't see you, bless them. Always speak blessings, not cursings. Your default attitude should always be blessing. You just don't do curses. We don't do curses. We don't curse people. And this is not meaning cursing like cussing. That's fun sometimes. It's cursing. It's curse, because sometimes it's the only word. It's the only word that fits, right? You're like, darn it. And no, that's not the word, right? Even Jesus is like, you want to try again? I'll give you a mulligan on this one, right? Anyway, it means literally to pray consequence over them, to pray punishment over them. If some have cause to celebrate, if there's anybody around you who's experiencing joy, join in the celebration. Feel what they're feeling. Get excited for them. And if others are weeping, then join with them as well, instead of thinking, well, you deserve this, or you had this coming, or it's your own fault. Join in them. Walk toward unity. I like that, because it's a journey. And live in harmony with one another. Do you know what harmony is? There's this trend on TikTok where it's like, it says, when the harmony hits, it's a whole different thing. And then it's just 2 or 3 people completely singing out of key on purpose. And it's meant to just kind of, be a funny thing. But that is when voices are singing in harmony, it's this intentionality to blend that and make this beautiful singular note, right? It's to add your voice to it. Avoid thinking you're better than others or wiser than the rest. Instead, embrace common people and ordinary tasks. See everyone as equal. I want you to think for a moment about the people in your life you don't see as morally equal to you, as intellectually equal to you, as relationally equal to you, as racially equal to you. The people that trigger you the moment you hear them talking, or the moment, I'm not talking about people you know necessarily, people you see on the news, people that represent a different viewpoint than you. And literally we're commanded to harmonize with them. That takes work. Third and finally is this: I want to fill up on the right attitude, so I become someone where people find their peace and rest. So I don't think I can count the number of funerals that I've done in the last over 30 years. I just did one on Friday, and I'll do another one again on Saturday. And for those who remember Carol Smith, she was here for quite a while. Her funeral Saturday. And encourage you to be a part of that if you can. Help celebrate her life. And then honestly, I probably have done more weddings, I'm guessing, but I don't know the number. It's countless a number at this point. And can I tell you this? Though I don't know the number of the ones I've done, I can remember with almost perfect clarity that at a wedding, I don't remember the words peace and rest ever being used to describe what the groom and bride are going to experience in marriage. A lot of other words, but never peace and rest. At every, and I mean every funeral, it's the one who has died that's now at peace and at rest. And I thought, is that it? Is that what we have to wait until we're dead to be at peace and rest? Or is it that somehow, I mean, like, it's so tragic that you're like, they're not around us anymore. They don't have to pay bills. They don't have to, like, they're dead, and now they're finally at peace. I mean, there's got to be a way to get to peace and rest before that point, correct? And it is telling that we don't make that promise on marriage. Like, peace and rest are not two things that I want to say are going to happen when you get married, right? But as followers of Christ, really peace and rest are supposed to be our default attitude. It's supposed to be characteristics of our life. Not because I say so, but because literally Jesus uses this phrasing. He talks about the blessings that come from it. He talks about it in his own life and as a characteristic of him and his nature and who we're supposed to be. Listen to what he says in Matthew 11, 28 through 30. Come to me. He's talking to the crowds. Come to me, all of you are tired from the heavy burden that you've been forced to carry. And again, his audience is primarily Jewish, and he's almost specifically talking about the law that you've lived under, the oppressiveness of religion that has weighted you down. And he says, I will, me, not a new religion, but I personally will give you rest. Accept my teaching, accept what I'm telling you about God, and learn from me. I'm gentle and humble in spirit, a contrast to the religious leaders, the Pharisees, the teachers of the law, who are arrogant and prideful and smug and weighty in their attitudes towards people. And you will be able to get some rest. Yes, the teaching that I ask you to accept is easy, and the load I give you to carry is light. Why have we in church assigned ourselves as gatekeepers to load people up with more and more and more that they must do to become followers of Christ, to live as Christians? We put one more expectation and one more condition and one more thing on their back that it just weights them. They come to Jesus to find rest and peace, and we just burden them with expectations that we made up, not Jesus. Jesus outright tells people, I'm not aggressive, I'm not angry, I'm not harsh, I'm not proud, I'm not mean, I'm not obnoxious, I'm not demanding, I'm not hard to please. I'm not everything that the law has been to you. When you're around me, you're going to feel like this is vacation from all of that. This is rest from all of the expectations and all of the turmoil, from all of the anger and the vitriol that you experience politically and religiously and relationally and all that we do to each other. This is going to feel like, I love being around this guy. I let my guard down, my shoulders sag a little bit because they're not all tensed up and all knotted from the stress that I carry. And he says, you're going to have peace with me. In the midst of the conflict and the chaos that's going on all around you, like, that's always going to be there, but you come to me and it's peace. There's no conflict here. You don't have to defend yourself with me. You don't have to guard yourself. You don't have to worry that I'm going to stab you in the back or cut your throat. I'm the good guy. But listen to what else he says. John 14:27. He says, I'm leaving you with a gift. I've got to go away, but don't worry. I'm giving you something. Peace of mind and heart. Of all the things that Jesus could have left, he leaves peace. And the peace I give is a gift the world cannot give, so don't be troubled and afraid. He says, this is unique. What I'm giving you, it's good stuff. Listen, you don't have to have a life. Jesus didn't say, what I'm giving you, I leave you without conflict, without chaos in your life, without trouble, without burdens, without people who are going to annoy you and people who are going to attack you and things that are going to upset you. I give you that. Jesus didn't say that at all. He said, I give you peace in the midst of all of that. I give you something that can't be given, because the only way the world could give that to you is if they resolved all conflict, then we would all be at peace. They can't give that to you. I give you peace in the midst of conflict. James, Jesus' brother, says this in James 3:18. Those who bring peace to other people, help them to live together in peace. As a result, people choose to do what is right and good. I want you to track. Jesus says, I am peace and rest. I give you peace and rest. The book of James says, you can bring that peace and give it to other people. You be peace to them. You be rest to them. And when they find peace and rest in you, they will then live at peace and rest and begin to live the way they're supposed to. We need to stop trying to convert people to Christianity and welcome them into peace and rest. They'll find Jesus inside the peace and rest, because that's us living in the presence of Christ. When you live in the presence of Christ, you live in the presence of peace and rest. And when people find peace and rest with you, they find the presence of Christ with you, and they begin to follow Christ. And then I'm going to leave you with the final words of Jesus. I read this a few weeks ago. Jesus says, God blesses those. This is what we call, it's the Sermon on the Mount, which is the name we gave it, and the Beatitudes, another name we gave it. But Jesus is, blessed are those, or God blesses those, or the most sort of literal common translation is, you will find happiness when you. I love that, because this is about an attitude adjustment. Jesus says, I'm telling you how to be happy, because God's going to bless a life. Don't you want to live a blessed life, right? God's going to bless a life that does these things. And he says, God blesses those people who make peace. They will be called his children. So, peace can be received as a gift. It can be brought to others. It will change their life. And you can make peace. In a moment where there are no ingredients, where there's nothing, there's no mortar or brick of peace to build peace, you can actually make peace right there. You possess what it takes to make peace. And that's my question to you is in this world where peace is considered this naive, childish, sickeningly innocent, just weirdness, like it's not time for peace. I've seen posts recently about the Minnesota incident where the woman was shot by an ICE agent, and just the voices of hate it's terrible to see the worst of us come out. And it's even worse to see those who say they represent Christ speak with such anger and vitriol and animus towards each other. And I just think, when did we, as ambassadors of the grace and love of Christ, think that it was our job to declare war on anyone? But especially those who disagree with us, or those who don't see the world as we see it, or don't see an incident as we see it. That's the time actually when the character and the nature and the attitude of Christ is most important. Jesus could have declared war on the world. The world certainly deserved it. The world was at war with God, and Jesus could have declared. He didn't, though. The angels declared peace to all of mankind. God comes to bring peace. You will not solve a single conflict in this world by adding more to the conflict, by becoming a participant in the conflict. But you are a peacemaker. Let me go on to say this. If you aren't a peacemaker, you can't fit the description of child of God. Because Jesus said, "Blessed are those who make peace, they will be called the children of God." So those who don't make peace will not be called the children of God. I didn't say it. Don't get mad at me. Jesus said it. And I assume he means what he says. Because those who have been transformed by peace must be peacemakers. You won't do it by yourself, I promise. I'm not good at making peace. I don't have the natural gifts for it. I don't have the natural inclination for it. I have to take this gift and go, this is foreign to me. I'm going to show you what Jesus showed me about it, and I'm going to give you some and hope you do better with it than I'm doing with it. But I'm obligated as a follower of Jesus Christ to make good with this. He's entrusted it to me. Jesus even tells a story of the talents that the wealthy master gives his servants. And he says, I'm trusting you to do something with it. And one guy goes, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to bury it so nobody takes it. And others, they go, I'm going to invest this. And it brings back multiple folds of what they invested. And Jesus calls the one who hid it wicked. God has given us peace to bring to the world. If we hide it, it's wickedness. He would rather us try to give it all away and him go, calm down, I'll give you some more, but you're just giving it all away. Wouldn't you love that? For God to just keep heaping more upon you, bringing more peace to your life, bringing more rest to your life because you can't help yourself. You love bringing it everywhere you go. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes and just give yourself a moment of reflection and privacy. There's nothing spiritual or important about closing your eyes. It's just practical. It's practical and it helps tune out distraction. And ask yourself this, is my attitude one that people would describe as being the attitude of Christ? I ask that because people saw Jesus' attitude because of his behavior. And I think we can all see our attitudes through our behaviors. As peace and rest, and reconciliation and unity and harmony. It feels really naive, right? It feels really Pollyanna. It feels really rainbows and Skittles and kitten noses. It feels that way. But can I tell you this? How would you know how it feels? We've never really even tried it. I mean, I don't see it marking our lives like Jesus describes. So maybe if we really, really try this, it doesn't seem so odd and weird, like Jesus is washing the feet of his disciples, which seems so out of place. Maybe that was the whole point. Maybe Jesus was like, this is shocking that you're seeing me do this, but I want to tell you this is exactly what you're supposed to do. Shock people with the level of humility and kindness and gentleness that you'll bring to a moment. Get into the Facebook discussions. Get on social media and drop these bombs of love and expect to be attacked and expect to be ridiculed and expect to be mocked and contradicted. It's not your job to persuade everyone to think like you. It's just your job to bring peace. Bring it. It's going to feel like the relative that brings a fruitcake to Christmas, and you're like, what are we going to do with that? Right? People can choose whatever they want to do. Maybe that just repulses them, the idea when they think they're supposed to be battling and fighting and joining the fray, and you just think, I don't know about any of that. I just know I know what my attitude's supposed to be. And Jesus didn't join the fight. Jesus brought peace and rest, and he brought it to the worst of us. And if that's not you yet, can I tell you that the great thing about attitudes is they can be adjusted. And we say things like, watch your attitude. That's my encouragement to you. Watch it closely. Watch it with a hawk's eye. Watch it and don't let it slide back into an attitude of the world, an attitude of aggression, an attitude of domineering, an attitude of conflict. You've got this. You've got it because you say you are a follower of Christ. And he wants you to succeed at this. Father, that's our prayer in this moment, that every single one of us checks our attitude. I mean, we watch it closely and we just think, nope, gosh, that's not it right there. That is definitely not the attitude of Christ. And I'm going to change my attitude. Little attitude adjustment. Help me do this. And then we go out and for the mistake that we made, we just think, you know what, I'm going to go try to do 5 peaceful things. I'm going to add 5 elements and ingredients of peace to a moment somewhere else. I'm going to be the person at work and in my family and at church and among my friends and in Facebook chat groups and in discussions and arguments. I'm going to be the place where people find peace and rest and they find safety and they get to retreat from all of it. I want to be that because Jesus called me to it. And I want to be a follower, a true disciple of Jesus Christ. That's my prayer today. I claim it as if it's already happened in our lives. In Jesus' name, everybody said, amen. God bless you.